Okay, good morning. You're joining me in session here at a place called Clattercote Reservoir, which is in Banbury. About an hour away from my home. I got up this morning, put the gear in the car, woke the missus up. Not good on a Sunday morning. And as a result, travelled down. We're doing something that you'd normally associate with summer sort of fishing, I suppose. We're zig rigging, and as a result, we're spod souping over the top of it. So the aim of today is to show you how I'm doing that, the hook links I'm using, the materials to make up the zig rig itself, the baits, what I'm putting into the bait, and obviously the process of actually spodding over the top of those zigs. We've already had a couple this morning. It's the 18th of January, it's very cold. The net was actually frozen to the floor after trying to net a few fish this morning. We've only been here half an hour, so I'm going to get a few more of these out, and then later on we'll hopefully have a few carp to put up to the camera for you. This is the third fish of the morning, as you can see from the scenery behind me. It's very cold, there's a hard frost on the ground, the bivvy is frozen. We got here this morning, quickly put the bivvy up because it was looking like it might snow. And this was caught on a zig, about 12 foot off the bottom. So the fish are about mid-water, it's about 20 foot. We're fishing off the dam wall here at Clattercote. It's about the average stamp, about 8-9 pounds. We're not here for big fish. There is a few 20s in here, so that would be nice. But we're just here for a bit of fun. And lots of carp. So hopefully I'll be showing you a few more of these today on my session. We'll get this one back, get the rods back out and start spodding again. Okay, I've just put the rod back out. Zig rig fishing, a lot of people are a bit there's a bit of debate on how tight you should have your lines. A lot of people say slack, semi-slack, tight lines. I prefer fishing a tight line. Now a bite indication on a zig can sometimes be half an inch lift and you've got one. Because there's such a long length of line out there from your lead to your hook bait, that fish has got such a big movement. I mean, we're using 12-foot zigs, so really from one end to the other, it's got about a 24-foot range movement before it even indicates on the lead. So just a little drop back or a little lift on a semi-slack line, that might not even indicate. Whereas on a tight line, take the stretch out of the line, obviously have it just maybe a half-inch sort of drop set from the sort of tip of the rod or the butt of the rod, and just a little lift or a little drop back, I'll be hitting into the rod. Because we're fishing over small particles, the fish are snatching at baits all in the top water, in the top levels of the water, and as a result, just a slight indication can sometimes mean the difference between a take and obviously not getting that indication on a slacker line. So personally, tight line fishing your zigs close together in a tight sort of area, spomming over the top, little indication into a fish. Well, as you can see, it's all kicking off. I've enlisted the help of a friend fishing next door because I've had a double take, and a lot of that I put down to the mix I use and creating that sort of frenzied feeding out in the upper layers out there. So once I get these two in, we'll show you that mix now. But the action's kicked off thick and fast. We've had to enlist the help of the cameraman and a friend fishing next door. 3 fish all on at once. There would have been 4, but one of them fell off. All about the same size, about 7-8 pounds. Just shows how effective the zigs can be. Let's put these back. Okay, after that quick flurry of action there, we were going to talk bait. Now I've been using the new Hinder's Nutz Sludge, and that basically creates exactly what I want in the water column in terms of a feeding frenzy. We're fishing 12 foot up in the water, so about mid-water, and the way I mix the mix, if you know what I mean, is exactly how I want it to behave in the water. So if I'm fishing higher, for example, then I create it quite watery, put lots of sort of oils and sort of watery liquids in there to keep it hanging in the upper layers for longer. Whereas this, you can see, is reasonably stodgy. Now that's because of how deep this water is. I want it to fall through the water column, not too quick, but not too slow, because I needed to get to where that zig is quite quickly. The only reason I'm doing that is because that's where I found where the fish are. So I've played with the depths of the zigs, I've gone taller, gone shorter, 6 foot, 18 foot, they're at 12. So as a result, I've mixed the mix to the right consistency to make sure that it's falling through the columns and getting to where the fish are quicker. As a result, we're getting takes very quickly, sometimes even on the drop. Normally after 3 or 4 spods, as it's gradually falling through the water, they're following it down, finding not a lot of food articles, and that's because of the mix itself. There's bits of hemp in there, very small pellets I've put in, sort of ground bait particles that are all sort of hanging in the area. Not a lot of food value. The only big bit of food really is the bit of foam on the end of my hook bait. As a result, there's no big articles in there. Sweet corn at a push sometimes if I want it to fall, and maybe create an area on the bottom for a nighttime feed or something like that. Maybe the odd chop boilie if I was doing that elsewhere, such as Brasenose, Thorpley, Oxley's, places like that. But here, the fish really, they're not going anywhere near the bottom. They're up around the 12-14 foot mark, and as a result, I'm trying to make sure the fish stay in that area and stay around my hook baits for longer, leading to double takes, treble takes as you just saw. So what we'll do is, now I've explained how I'm using the mix, we'll go and look at the ingredients to that now. Okay, we've just finished bombing. I was talking about the ingredients that I put into the mix and how to make it behave in the water, so let's look at those. First of all, I've got a bit of A-mix. Okay, so there's lots of different sort of crushed up bits and bobs in there, lots of small food particles, and not only that, but it clouds the water brilliantly. Now, I've put maybe half a bag in to start with, but the bulk of the mix is made up of the new Nutz Sludge. Now, there's no prior preparation to this. I've come to the lake, get to bankside, put obviously plenty of water in, or some oils, or whatever sort of liquids I'm going to include, and that stodges this up nicely. Again, the smaller food particles in there sort of cloud the upper water. It smells brilliant. It clouds the upper layers, like I was saying, and as a result, the fish are snatching at those particles, and the only real bit of food value is your hook bait. So a whole bag of that goes in. That's a couple of kilos there. Depending on where I'm fishing, or sometimes sort of somewhere like Brasenose or Oxley's like that, obviously you're sort of setting up for the night as well. So obviously all of those food particles that you use, the smaller ones are going to stay up in the upper layers, and the fish are going to attack them and things, and they're quite small. So obviously at night I'm looking to maybe fish 1 or 2 rods on the bottom as well. As a result, I'm looking at sort of little 2 mil pellets that are going to fall through. If they're not eaten through the upper layers as it's sort of falling through, then obviously they're going to end up on the bottom of the lake bed, and I can fish over these at night. Alongside the pellets, I like using some liquids as well. This is the Supreme Cream, and again it sort of matches the sort of creamy, nutty sort of aroma that I'm using with the rest of the bait. I like matching those, such as the boilers that I'm using at the minute. So Tails Up's Proceed is a very creamy sort of bait. There's a little bit of sort of fruit flavour in there as well. So everything sort of matches. That's just personal preference. You don't have to do that. I like using sweet corn sometimes as well, and other things. Crushed boilies, like I was saying. Tiger nuts would be fine if you want to sort of chop a few of them up. Chopped tigers, you can get them in the little tins. Really, the world's your oyster, as they say. You can put everything into there as long as you get the consistency right. And as a result, it's just making sure that the liquids that you put in, or the water content that you put in, is making sure the mix is stodgy enough or sort of soft enough to stay up in the upper layers, depending on where you want it to fall. The heavier the mix, the stodgier the mix, the quicker it's going to fall to the bottom. If you want them up in the upper layers, especially in the summertime, or even in the winter when the sun gets on the water, then make sure it's sort of more liquidy if you want. The stodgier the mix, the lower in the water. That's how I'm fishing it today, because we're fishing in deep water. We want it to fall to the level where the zigs are, get a take quickly, get the rods back out, and have as many fish as possible. So as a result of that, make sure you've got all your sort of ingredients to hand, mix it up, because the minute you get spomming, it shouldn't take too long before you get a take. Here's another example of a Clattercote caught mirror, all using the Zig rigs again. I haven't put a bottom bait out at all today, and I don't think I will. Still on the 12 footers, we've obviously found where they want to be in the water levels. We've just spoken about the baits and how we're using those. Let's go and have a look at the rigs and the components that make them up. Well, no sooner have we put that one back that I was just showing you, than this rod's whipped away as well. Just shows that when the fish move in over the bait, you do get takes very quickly. We've had double takes, treble takes, we've even had 4 on at once today. And this is just another example of how effective that bait is. Once this one's in, we will get round to talking about those rigs and how we set up for these half biting carp. And we'll hold this one up for you as well. here's the second half of that brace of takes we've just had. Fish are coming thick and fast now, so let's go and take a look at those rigs. Okay, we've had a lull long enough in the action to hopefully show you some of these Zig rigs. Now, we'll get onto the actual rig components and the Zig itself in a moment, but the lead system is something that's key in the way I approach how to fish certain venues. Now, if your venue is completely clear of snags, weed and things like that, then an inline setup I find is best. The impact of an inline lead on the Zig and the hooking impact is really good. And if you haven't got any worries about the lead snagging on anything, then go with that one definitely. In this instance, we've got a down wall which is providing a very steep shelf, and obviously the fish can get around the back of that, and obviously with the lead system staying on there, that can sometimes be sort of problematic in landing the fish. As a result, I'm using the Korda Cog system. There's a mouthful. It's absolutely brilliant way of combining both an inline setup and a leg clip setup. So you've got the safety of a leg clip coming off if the fish were to snag itself on the down wall, for example, today where we're fishing. The actual cog system, which means centre of gravity, picks the lead up from the sort of heaviest lead sort of end first. So you're getting the impact of an inline lead, but the safety of a leg clip, which in this situation and weedy situations on the lakes I fish back in Oxfordshire, such as the Linear Complex, this is definitely going to play a massive role in my summer fishing this year when I'm using Zigs. In terms of the actual hook end, let's get onto the Zig itself. I'm using a Fox Zig Aligna. And that itself is a little red sort of almost like a liner system, and there's a little hoop on the back that you can slot any sort of colour, a bit of foam in. I've got a bit of black on this. The red and black itself I find really good in places like St John's, Manor, the Oxfordshire waters, the proper gravel pits, the clear venues. In here we're using bits of yellow. Again, places like Brasenose and Oxley's, they'll sort of respond to that bright visual, whereas the sort of wily old carp in some of the other linear venues like Hardwick and St John's and places like that, they prefer something that looks that little bit more natural, or that I'm going from my own experience. So yeah, that to me looks like a little sort of almost like a bloodworm larvae with sort of like a little sort of invertebrate on the back of it. That's got me loads of carp. Flavouring them wise, we're flavouring today, I think this has probably become synonymous with Zig fishing now. Betalin Black, the smell is lovely. If you ever sort of hold the hook bait and just accidentally get a bit on your tongue whilst you're putting the hair stop in your mouth, it doesn't half taste good. I've been tempted to put it in my tea, but I don't know. If you don't fancy the Betalin Black, then the Betalin Liquid, the bog standard version, that's absolutely fine. The sweetness of it, soaking your foam hook baits and other hook baits in it for sort of a couple of weeks beforehand. I've always got a pot of plastic or a pot of foam soaking in it. I've probably had it for the last couple of years now, so using those 12-foot Zigs, that's what we're catching on today, using the cog system. I've actually had a fish sort of snag me up on the down wall a couple of times and the lead's just bumped off. Job done. I've safely netted the fish, quickly put a lead back on, got the rod back out there, and yeah, within minutes you're back into another fish. I'm surprised we haven't had another one whilst we're talking, but I'm going to put a few more spods out and hopefully get another take. So this is about the average stamp for Clattercote Reservoir here in Banbury. It's a nice lake, about 30 acres. Deeper at this end where we're fishing at the dam end and shallower at the other with some nice islands. Simple rules, barbless hooks. Other than that, just common sense. And with fish like this, they do scrap as well. And I mean, we've probably had about 30 fish so far today. Once this one calms down. There we go. So yeah, with bags of up to 30 to 40 carp a day, great winter fun, especially in January when it's a bit cold. Just remember to bring the tea making gear. It's in there, there's hemp, there's nut sludge, I'm gonna have to stop. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my day now on Clattercote. I'm just about to net another lovely looking common. I've really enjoyed my day. We've had loads of carp. It just shows how effective these zigs are, especially spawning over them. I never ever thought in the middle of January I'd be spawning over zigs, but like I said, I've probably had 40, 50 carp. It's been a great day. I have tried a bait on the bottom, it hasn't worked. So it just shows, you know, that the fish are up in the layers. They're trying to get that last bit of warmth, trying to find sort of layers in the thermocline that they can sit and be comfortable at. And luckily we found them. 12 to 14 foot seems to be the spots today. It could be different tomorrow. That's part of the sort of luxury with zigging. You have to experiment and enjoy that side of it as well. But yeah, for now, I'm going to finish out playing this last carp of the session, pack off home, and go and have my Sunday dinner.